Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and our YouTube channel. Highly recommend subscribing. On today's show, we get Matt Moore's NBA State of the Union. Who deserves a shout out and who deserves a call out? But we start with Monday Night Football, and here's the matchup at a glance. Broncos plus 7.5. is receiving 41% of bets, but 79% of money. Bills, by the way, are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games. Meanwhile, 83% of bets and 89% of money is on the under of 47. The most bet prop leading up is Dalton Kincaid to score a touchdown at plus 210. Let's say hello to our analytics team, Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen. Hi, guys. Nick, I wanted to ask you about Kincaid because another prop that's getting a lot of action at BetMGM in particular is Kincaid to go over his receiving yards total. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is my runner-up prop for this game, but I'm actually taking the under here. You can find it as high as 54.5 receiving yards, and I know his volume has gone up the last 2 games with fellow tight end Dalton Knox out, but I think this is a good spot to fade the public who's all over him after those 2 recent big games with Knox out. You know, Kincaid, his average depth of target is just a paltry 3.9 yards. And so that's translated to 8.5 yards per reception and just 7.5 yards per target. And I think those numbers are even a bit inflated thanks to his catch rate, which is an unsustainably high 89%. Even adjusting for his very short average depth of target, he's still coming in around 10% too high in terms of his catch rate. So I do think that should regress some. And, you know, while Kincaid has been Josh Allen's go-to man these past 2 weeks, those came against 2 defenses that just allow a ton of volume to the tight end position, especially Tampa Bay. They allowed the 5th most targets per game to the position, when Cincinnati allows the 11th most targets per game. Denver all the way down in 20th in terms of targets per game allowed to the tight end position. So not allowing as much volume as in those previous 2 matchups where Kincaid kind of went off. Also, Cincy and Tampa Bay are strong versus other positions, namely the wide receiver and running back. So it made the tight end even a bit more of a funnel in those 2 games. Whereas, you know, Denver, they kind of just stink all around on defense. So you can run on them, you can throw on them to anywhere. So they don't necessarily have to rely on Kincaid as much as maybe in those previous games. So with his short ADOT, average depth of target, Kincaid may need 6 or even 7 catches to clear this line. So I've got him projected closer to a median of 48 yards.
Well, good to know if you are thinking about betting the over on Kincaid's receiving yards. Nick is thinking he would go the other way, and you were very close to giving this out as your favorite prop, and we'll get your official pick in a moment. But first, Sean, what was your runner-up, if you will, as you were deciding which prop to give out?
Yeah, so my runner-up was James Cook under 2.5 receptions. You can get that at minus 105 right now. And, you know, Cook typically handles most, if not all, of the early down work, which is going to be the more run-heavy downs. And he splits third down work with Latavius Murray, which are, you know, very valuable for this market. And then he concedes pretty much all the 2-minute offensive snaps to Latavius Murray. Those are usually the best snaps to get for this market. You know, Josh Allen also doesn't target his running backs too often. Only 13% of his pass attempts have been to running backs, which is the 4th lowest rate in the league. Allen's also been scrambling at a much higher rate recently, which also takes away from, you know, running back targets. And, you know, Cook also sees some of his receptions beyond the line of scrimmage, which isn't normal for a running back. So, you know, he's going to have a lower expected catch percentage because of that. So for all those reasons, you know, I'm projecting this closer to 2.3 receptions, which is about a 60% chance he stays under 2.5.
Well, this prop in particular was number 5 on BetMGM's list of most bet props. So if you're riding with this one, you could be on the right track. Now, let's get the picks that actually made the cut. Nick, we'll start with you. What's the one that you recommend?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a fun one. We're going to go to the kickers, and I'm going to go Will Lutz over 1.5 field goals made Denver Broncos kicker. You can find that at plus 135 at BetMGM. This is fun because, Denver, they actually go for it on fourth down at the fourth lowest rate in the NFL. So they're kicking when they, have a fourth down situation. They're not going for it. And that's why Will Lutz has 15 field goal attempts in just 8 games, which is nearly just under 2 attempts per game. Meanwhile, Buffalo, they've allowed 15 field goal attempts, but that's come in 9 games. However, in the past 4 games, when they've really been decimated by injuries, Matt Milano's been out, Daquan Jones, Tre'Davious White, all on IR. In just these past 4 games with that trio out, they've allowed 9 field goal attempts. That's 2.25 per game. And those attempts actually correlate with how good the offense is. So a better offense has attempted fewer field goals because they're making more touchdowns. So if we look at that in these past 4 games, Cincinnati's attempted 1 field goal, and that's because the Joe Burrow improved offense after that bye week. Now that his calf is healed up and everything, they've been really efficient. Tampa Bay, they had 2 field goal attempts, and they're kind of a middling offense. And the New England Patriots and New York Giants each had 3 field goal attempts against the Buffalo Bills. And those are bottom tier offenses in terms of offensive DVOA. Denver's kind of in that middle tier around with Tampa Bay. So 2 field goal attempts seems pretty reasonable. They should be in a good spot to move the ball, the Denver Broncos, against this banged up Bills defense missing a bunch of players. But they aren't elite enough where all of them will turn into touchdowns. You can expect them to stall out a few times, which I think will allow for some field goal opportunity. There's a little bit of wind in the forecast tonight, but it's not at a level where I think it's really going to significantly impact anything. So I've got fair value on this at like plus 115. So plus 135, we're getting some really nice value. And I like just taking that plus money. It's always nice when you get a little extra return there.
That's quite the edge, and not only are the field goals associated with sort of lower scoring offenses, but even in the games that we've seen go to pretty high scores, we've seen a lot of, field goal game winners. Like yesterday, I think there were like 5 of them. Yep. So very interesting. Sean, how about you? What is the prop that made the cut for you today?
Yeah, so I'm going with Josh Allen under 277.5 passing yards. He's thrown an interception now in 5 straight games, so I would expect the Bills to have a bit more of a conservative game plan tonight as a result, especially against a beatable team like the Broncos. We've seen his average intended air yards take a bit of a hit the past 2 games. He's throwing underneath a lot more, kind of what Nick was saying with his Kincaid prop. So we could see some shorter completions, keep the clock running, maybe a bit more of a run-heavy game plan. We've also seen, like I mentioned, Josh Allen's leaning on his legs a lot more recently. He has 7 or more rush attempts in 3 straight games. So that's another path for this under hitting. And I realize, the Broncos have one of the worst pass defenses in the league. They also have one of the worst run defenses as well. So another reason for them to be maybe a bit more balanced, a bit more cautious with tonight's approach. I definitely think he's going to be efficient, but if they get, a pretty big lead early on, that's going to hurt him clearing this. And this is really a number he's cleared a lot this year. He's only cleared this number 3 of 9 games. So even with the easy matchup, I just don't see him getting there. I have his median projection closer to 260 with about a 60% chance of staying under this pretty high number.
Yeah, Josh Allen just hasn't quite looked the same this year. And by the way, if you like these props, you probably want to jump on them now. They are the lines are known to move after we give them out. But one other thing I wanted to ask you guys about, because I think a lot of people are wondering, with this primetime under trend, after last night, they're 24-7 primetime unders. So that's over 77%. So a lot of people might be like looking to bet that, obviously. So is there anything that makes you hesitate about betting this? Sean, we'll start with you.
I'm just kind of in line with this, and I don't like to bet just because of a trend. Typically, I like primetime unders because everyone loves taking the over in primetime games. Sometimes that can inflate the number a bit, and maybe that's what led to this recent trend. But everybody's on this right now. It looks like most of the bets are on the under, so we could see this start going the other way. When it comes to actual game, the Bills are dealing with a ton of injuries on defense right now. Micah Hyde is out. Terrell Bernard is questionable. If he's out, that's going to be a big loss since they already are without Matt Milano. So, the Bills defense is susceptible. So this game could be higher scoring. So I'm staying away from it, not because of the trend, just because I'm pretty much in line with this number.
How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I was going to say almost the exact same thing Sean was saying. These primetime unders have been hitting at a crazy rate, but I think that's why it's where it is now at 47. But the Bills are banged up. The Broncos defense is terrible. So we actually could see some points. Now, again, maybe a little bit of wind might keep this a little down, but overall, just kind of in line. But Sean and I were talking before, all these primetime unders, people are finally buying into it. And we're coming up on the point in the season where we're going to start getting some luck overs in the coming weeks. And I hope we get a luck over on a primetime game when everybody's betting the under, because I have no problem backing overs when the luck ranking is saying go on the over here. But even in this game, the luck ranking, luck total is like pretty close to 0. So we don't have any signal on this one.
Well, that's why I want to ask you guys. You're the experts, and also you're like what Sean was saying. You're not going to bet something just because of a trend. You're going to see that the numbers are showing value on one side or the other, and that's why you're going to bet it. So appreciate it, guys.
Yep.
Here are my 2 touchdown score picks for Broncos Bills, brought to you by the Action Network app. And my first pick, I'm going to go with Gabe Davis. I grabbed his touchdown odds at plus 230. Now, he's got 5 touchdowns this year with 8 red zone targets. And the part that I love about Davis is that he leads the team in ADOT, but 4 of his 5 touchdowns this year have been scored in the red zone. So he can beat you over the top or beat you short. He's also scored 3 touchdowns in 4 games in Buffalo. And this Broncos defense, they rank last in DVOA to the pass and last in DVOA versus wide receiver 2. So Patrick Surtain is matched up with Stephon Diggs. I love Davis's chances to find the end zone. My next pick, we're going to go with Courtland Sutton. I grabbed his odds at plus 250. Now, he's got touchdowns in 6 of 8 games this year, all 6 scored in the red zone. This Bills secondary kind of in shambles, injuries across the board. They've given up 6 passing touchdowns in just the last 3 games. They also rank 28th in DVOA to the wide receiver 1 position. So if Sutton is able to get a quick score early, or if the Broncos are trailing in the second half, I like Sutton's chances just as much. So those are my 2 picks. We're going with Courtland Sutton and Gabe Davis, both tracked at the Action Network app. Bonne chance.
To the NBA, the team that traded for James Harden is on a very different trajectory than the team that dealt him. The Clippers are 0-4 since the trade, 28th in offensive rating, 24th in defense. The Sixers, meanwhile, are doing just fine, currently on an 8-game win streak. Action Network senior writer Matt Moore joins us now for his NBA State of the Union address. Matt, please, take it away.
My fellow NBA fans, I'm honored to be here with you today to give you the State of the Union in the NBA. We'll begin with the highlights. Let's talk about those Sixers. Tyrese Maxey drops 50 points versus the Pacers on Sunday. An absolutely incredible performance. He has leveled up to an absolutely amazing degree. Over the summer, he asked to work with Drew Hanlon, Embiid's trainer, and they got in the gym together. And Maxey actually asked to work with him specifically so that he could learn where Embiid wants his passes thrown. That's the kind of chemistry that you need. That's the kind of commitment that you need and that Embiid really needs from his running partner, something he may not have had with the previous guy that was in town handling the ball. You know, if you look at it, the Sixers are plus 11 in net rating with both Maxey and Embiid on the floor. That's versus starters. That's a great number. They're plus 16 when Maxey's on the floor without Embiid, plus 13 with Embiid without Maxey. What does that tell you? The whole team is playing with verve. They're playing with intensity. They're playing with chemistry. This team loves playing together right now. And they're playing, honestly, a refreshing style. Nick Nurse deserves a lot of credit for revamping the offense. Embiid's averaging a career high in assists. A lot of that's because they've added things like dribble handoffs and different types of motion to get the ball moving. And Embiid's been really on target with his passes. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Maxey is now plus 100 or shorter in the market for most improved. That's actually still really good value. Barring injury, Maxey is running away with this award. He's on track for an all-star appearance. He's on track for all of the kind of accolades. He lines up perfectly with the type of player that winds up winning most improved. On the low light, we're going to have to go to where James Harden went. You know, before the trade, the Clippers were 3-2. They were 3rd in offense and 7th in defense. And as that graphic said, since they're 0-4, 28th in offense, 24th in defense, it's been absolutely miserable. There's all these kind of problems. It's clear that they just don't know how to play together. They lost to the Grizzlies at home in Harden's debut on Sunday. That's not great. My question, though, is Brian Damaris from the Mavs halftime show went off on Harden and had a great clip. You can find it wherever on the web, basically. It was everywhere. Talking about Harden's the bad roommate. But everyone's saying, like, oh, since the trade, they traded for Harden. Why is Harden the one getting the flack here is my question, my fellow NBA fans. Kawhi Leonard's the best player on this team. Kawhi Leonard is the one with 2 championship rings. Kawhi Leonard is the one that everyone talks about when you talk about the Clippers' best player. Why is Kawhi Leonard not expected to set the standard for the Los Angeles Clippers? When they lose games like this, where's Kawhi Leonard? Playing above and harder, yelling at his guys, getting them organized. Why? Because that's not who Kawhi Leonard is. I would say that we should stop asking, what can James Harden do for the Clippers, and ask what Kawhi Leonard is doing at all. That's your NBA State of the Union.
I need to let that breathe for a second because that was phenomenal, Matt. Wonderful address. Appreciate it. Also appreciated the fact that you brought up the term "since the trade." I think that wording can be misleading when talking about both the Sixers and the Clippers. Sixers haven't had James Harden at all this season. So they have been what they have been, knowing that they planned on dealing James Harden. That being said, on the Clippers side of things, you see the numbers. And Harden, minus 67 on the court. The production and plus minus has also dropped significantly for the aforementioned Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. So there is a problem for sure. I guess my question, or my follow-up question is this a long-term problem, or are they going to figure it out?
Look, I don't think that you're ever as bad as it seems in the moment in an 82-game season, nor as good. Like, the Sixers will have downtimes. They'll have injuries probably, and they'll have spots where they struggle this season. So will every other team at the top. What I will kind of say, though, I think is there are certain roster problems with the Clippers that have to be kind of solved. And among that is Mason Plumlee's out for a month with an MCL sprain. That's really causing them problems. They rolled out a lineup versus the Mavs when they got steamrolled in the second. That was 6'3", 6'3", 6'5", 6'5", 6'5". Like, they were just tiny. The Mavericks aren't even big, and Derek Lively, the rookie, was just towering over them. So finding the lineups that work, I think, is an issue. Finding the right guys to be in the rotation is an issue. Bones Highland might be finding less time right now because of how things are looking. The Clippers will likely find solutions as the season goes on, but I think it's going to take them a little bit. The problem is, I think if you're a bettor, there's no way to really approach this night to night. You can't bet on them right now. They're at an absolute, you can't bet against them. They're on an absolute low point. You're buying low. You can't bet on them. They've got chemistry issues and no leadership. You can't bet on the futures because you don't know if they're going to play or not. They're an absolute stay away, I think, from all directions right now.
Yes, sit and wait on that. All right, the clock is winding down. So what are your parting thoughts at the buzzer?
Yeah, let's talk about 3 teams I'm a little bit worried about. The Pelicans, they're losing with Zion in his minutes. They're losing worse with Ingram in his minutes. And this whole team looks like 1-2-3 Cancun. Like, Zion's talking about buying in. My man, it's like game 8. It's a little bit early to be like, boy, I don't know if I can just buy into this. Things are rough there. I really think they should move Brandon Ingram, but the coaching staff and players really love him. How about the Warriors? They're losing the Steph Curry minutes. That's not great when Steph's making like 7 threes a game. Mostly the problem is Andrew Wiggins, who's shooting 41% from the field, 15% from 3. Hold on, I'm checking with my sources. Yeah, that's not good. And 50% from the line. They are getting destroyed in Andrew Wiggins' minutes. The bench isn't as deep. Their record, I don't think, really reflects where this team is at. There are some serious problems. The Draymond Green mouthing off at Anthony Edwards isn't helping things either. Finally, the Bulls, they're pretty lifeless. They kind of came in this season that way. There's no real kind of indication of like what direction they're going. They're just kind of filling time and punching a clock. I will say that league sources have kind of indicated the Action Network this week that there's been an uptick in volume of noise about potential Bulls trade discussions, that at least the Bulls are now more open to taking calls and seriously discussing some trades in season for the stars, including DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, if anyone's interested.
All viable concerns. Bulls, by the way, second night of a back-to-back tonight, playing the Bucks. Damian Lillard supposed to return from a calf injury. Our NBA Commander-in-Chief, Matt Moore, thanks so much.
God bless you. God bless the NBA.
Oh, he's so great. Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app, rather. We keep track so you don't have to. Also, you can hang out with the Action Network crew Sunday, December 3rd in Hoboken, New Jersey at the Shepherd and the Knucklehead. That's from 4 to 9:30 p.m. as we do a live broadcast of the Favorites podcast with Chad Millman and Simon Hunter. You can go to eventbrite.com and search the Favorites pod or hit the link below to RSVP. That's going to do it for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.